Hi, everyone. Welcome back. I'm Jessica Lindl, the author of The Career Game Loop. I am really looking forward to our conversation today. Just a reminder, we are on step 2 of the Career Game Loop, joined by Farhan Ozkan and Joy Horvath. Farhan has actually created a global boot camp. One of the key messages that we're providing for you in the upskilling phase is how do you actually find alternative pathways if you don't have the desire, time, or money to go back and get a degree? And Farhan's going to bring that to life for us on how those alternative pathways work. In addition, Joy Horvath, who leads all of our Elevate work here at Unity. Elevate is really focusing on how do we support Unity creators all around the world to move into jobs with all of our customers and our employers. In addition to that, the chapter that we have in our book is called The Law of Little Quests, copyright Joy Horvath. She created that concept, and so she's going to bring to life for us the Law of Little Quests. But before we dive in, just a reminder, James in our last episode really helped us understand how do you actually start a quest? How do you get over your fear, get out of the house, really start networking, building your community, and figuring out what it is that you want to do? And we do this at many stages throughout our lifetime. Now we're at the point of we know what we want to do, but it seems so daunting to build all of these skills. How am I going to achieve this? How do I not get overwhelmed? And how do I do it in the time and financial situation that works best for me? All right, so let's go ahead and dive in. Farhan, why don't you kick us off and tell us a little bit about your background and XR Bootcamp?
Thank you, Jessica. I'm really excited about the book, to be honest, because this is something that we are always having difficulty to guide students. So thanks for inviting me here to the this interview, but also to the book as well. Happy to share the stage with Joy as well. I think what you guys are doing amazing in terms of opening up career pathways. So yeah, I'm Farhan. I'm founder of XR Bootcamp and global coordinator of XR Hack. My background, a little bit of maybe to give a context of how I end up here. So I come from an engineering background, but I've always been building ecosystems, partnerships, and enablement. 17 years ago, I founded one of the first pre-incubation centers focused on gaming and animation. And then I end up on the digital game distribution platform as a product manager. And then afterwards, I was working on business development of AAA game studios, and especially on the game engine tech side, XR Bootcamp, which helps top XR platforms to scale their developer activation. We actually collaborate quite closely with Unity as well, and Jobs for the Future to educate talents worldwide from like in Nigeria to Peru, California to Malaysia. And we are aiming to create a funnel of job-ready XR talents focused on cutting-edge technologies. And beyond that, I organize Global XR Hack. It's actually inspired by Global Game Jam, which is happening every year around January. And our goal is to create a worldwide series of hackathons that bring together the hackers, especially it's an XR AI hack, so we are also focusing on the AI side of things. And throughout my journey, I have realized that learning is most effective when it's hands-on, community driven, and aligned with the industry standards. So my passion is to really creating pathways that don't just teach skills but also connect learners to real world opportunities.
Wonderful. I can't wait to dive more into your global reach. You are working in so many different job markets, so it'll be really exciting to unpack that. Joy, would love to hear more about your background.
Yeah, absolutely. So I went to school for game development. Unfortunately, I graduated in 2009, right in the middle of the last major economic recession. And so I had immediate experience with a lot of the struggles that I think people are feeling when they're reading through the book. And while that was certainly a challenging time, I think it gave me a lot of resilience and a lot of knowledge that I'm able to share now. So that was good. But what ended up happening is while game industry jobs were few and far between at that time, educational jobs ended up being fairly available. And I found my way into game development education pretty quickly in my career. And what I found, I started out teaching at game development boot camps, and the skills that I had as a game designer were very well put to use as a teacher. As a matter of fact, I found that when I applied game development techniques to my classroom, my students responded very positively and they had an overall better learning experience. And so I found that to be an extremely interesting correlation between skill sets and something that I continued forward until I actually ended up teaching Unity at the college level, which was many years into my career. But that continued and led me to Unity Technologies itself, where I became an instructional designer. And I discovered that the role of an instructional designer is also very close to that of a game designer. And that's where it really came together for me that game development is an incredibly useful and flexible skill set for bringing learning to people in a way that not only do they more easily understand, but respond very positively to. So that's how I really kind of fell into this position. And yeah, I really like to think of myself as a game designer, just wearing different hats.
Thank you so much. I would love to hear how you came about the concept of the law of little quests and what it means. Please bring it to life for us.
Absolutely. I think everybody has this moment where they look at a goal that they want to achieve and they become incredibly overwhelmed. It could be something like what we really focus on in the book, it's getting a job or building your career, but it also can be something smaller, something like doing your taxes or even going to the grocery store. All of these things can feel overwhelming depending on where you are and what the circumstances around that goal is. And I've found that rather than focusing on the end goal, it's far more effective to focus on the small components that put you at your goal. I think the easiest way to think about this is the old saying that a journey of 1,000 miles begins with the first step. And that's it in a nutshell. Rather than focusing on the fact that you have 1,000 miles to walk, think about and celebrate the fact that you just can take one step and that gets you ever closer to your journey, to your journey's end. So celebrate the small pieces. Think about how you could break down the larger goal into something much more accomplishable and get to those victories faster. And that completely reframes your outlook on whatever you're trying to achieve. It makes it so the goal is the indication that you did all the other stuff. So it's the journey that matters more than the end goal. You'll get to the end goal if you focus on having a good journey.
So break this down for me. Imagine, I know you and I love boba tea. Imagine we're starting our own boba tea shop and we have to figure out how to find space, make boba tea, price the product, get the ingredients. I mean, it's so overwhelming. You and I will probably, it's just easier to go buy it ourselves. But break down for me how I think through starting that boba tea shop.
So I think the first step you already naturally did is you thought about all the different pieces. Normalize that. Think about all of the different parts that you have to do. Put it in a list, just somewhere where you could see everything. And in that moment, you'll probably feel very overwhelmed. Like, look at all this stuff. How am I possibly going to do that? Look at it, think, great, I have a point of reference. And now go to the smallest possible piece that you can. In a situation like opening a boba shop, you'd have a lot of different sub lists. So, find a place that I could rent, come up with different ingredients, build a brand, select one of the columns, and then go all the way down to the smallest little piece that you can accomplish today. Maybe that's figure out what color you want for your branding. Get that figured out, check it off the list. And now that's one thing that's out of your way. And then you could look at the next one. And usually these things build on each other. If you have the base color for your branding, you can now think about the design that you want your branding to be with this color. And then once you have the design, then you could think about like the other parts of the branding package. And it starts to really build out. And it all began with picking a color, the easiest thing in the world. So a lot of really big things come from the smallest decisions that seem the least important.
And I don't know about you, but when I can have a checklist and I actually start checking it, I get more motivated and feel more accomplished and get out of my head of analysis paralysis. So that's super helpful. Thank you. All
In
right.
case we are building a boba tea shop simulator, I would love to play that game as well, and I would like to. I'm also boba tea and matcha tea fan as well, so happy to join you there.
Forget the book. Let's just make boba.
Exactly.
Exactly. That'll be our next call. Farhan, you bring to life the hacker mindset. Please explain that to us and also how it resonates with your learners all the way from Africa to the Middle East to the Americas.
Definitely, definitely. I think from the point that Joy mentioned, starting small is very critical. And a typical hackathon, which is happening, I don't know, 48 hours, let's say, and you are literally witnessing all the ups and downs and all the potential pitfalls, but also the reward at the end, or what you have learned from your mistakes is already so much rewarding. And I see a hackathon, a smallest unit of a typical game dev journey. And I'm personally, and as a team, all of us have hackathon track record and experience. We have been affected so much from game jams and hackathons. We literally built the whole mindset of all our programs based on hackathons. And this hacker mindset is the part that comes from that. Part of our program, hackathon program, which is a 4-month program, the second half of the program is purely prototyping and MVP building, which means that every week you are building a prototype as an individual. Every week, imagine that 4 weeks in a row, you are on a hackathon on a different project. So 4 prototypes you are finishing, and then afterwards you are joining forces for the outstanding projects with the other team members to build MVP. So 2 weeks each sprint, which means that 2 MVPs on top. So you are literally building the portfolio by the end of the bootcamp. That's what we are aiming. And why we are
And
doing that?
the
Yeah, go
sorry to
ahead.
interrupt. The MVP is the minimum viable product. Is that right?
Exactly, is minimum viable product. Sometimes we are joking that it's like a most valuable player as well, because it's like it's literally you have something concrete in your hand that you can show after graduating from the boot camp to your potential employer, right? That's the most important part. And why we are doing that and why we believe that this makes you have job ready. First, it helps you to build a compelling standout portfolio. And second, it trains you to hyper focus on the most critical aspects of a project, like mechanics, user experience, or the use case itself. Is this game actually fun? Is this like a XR app is truly needed? Do I need to put a headset for this specific game or app, right? How does it encourage, incentivize the end user, right? So these kind of questions that they need to answer every sprint, and even we are doing daily scrums about that. But the most important thing, especially for us, is hacker mindset is also helping, especially for the XR and AI type of newly emerging technologies, because these are not established like our AAA game development, indie game development cycles. There is not established genre or mechanics. That means that developers, designers must create their own rules, a set of rules and principles while building these applications. And this makes user testing and also iteration very crucial. And it's the only way to refine your mechanics, immersion, and overall experience till it truly works.
Thank you so much. And just out of curiosity, when you look at the different cultures that you're working with, how much do your learners walk in the door understanding that? And how much does it resonate with them? And what's the difference geographically?
I think geographically, I can, because we are, especially after COVID, I think there are so many educational resources out there for which is free and available, thanks to Unity Learn as well. We are also making all our resources there available, accessible. And it looks like there's a really like a collective and like a common mindset of learning game development after, especially for the last couple of years. I don't see so much cultural differences because we are learning from the same resources.
Wonderful. Thank you. So, both of you have also discussed failure and how failure actually leads to innovation. Could you bring that to life for us? Joy, do you want to kick off? And if you're both okay with it, talking about maybe your own personal failure and that how that led to innovation as well. James, by the way, in the prior episode has gone deep on failure for him personally. So you won't be the first here.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think the main thought process that I have around failure is that it's nothing more than data. Failure allows you to understand the situation that you're in, the environment that you're working with, and discovering the general shape of it. This is something that I think gamers understand very well. In order to find your way to success, you first need to find your way through failure. You need to understand what doesn't work in order to isolate what does. People who play a lot of puzzle games will start any new puzzle by just trying things that they think probably won't work just so they could see the mechanics of the puzzle itself. And I think programmers also understand this very well, included in this, because if you are writing a new bit of code, for example, and you're not really sure, the system that you're building, you haven't had experience with this yet, being able to run it and see the errors, see why the code fails, will allow you to understand what is and isn't working, and then being able to modify that. The main problem with failure is our tendency to take it to heart and make it failure. The failure is about ourselves, that we have failed rather than the situation has not been successful. And I think that's the biggest hoop that you have to jump through in order to start reframing what failure is. 99% of the time, and you could even say 100% of the time, the failure is that of a situation, not of who you are as a person. You are not a failure. Something that you are involved with or something that you have done has failed. And it seems like a very subtle differentiation, but it's a very important one. When you take all of your failures personally and think it's about yourself, you're going to want to stop. But if you think about it from the gamer perspective, those failures are just pieces of data. It has nothing to do with you. It's just more things that you've learned. So the failure can become a learning experience, and you could apply that knowledge to try again. So it's really important to differentiate that and move away from that. As for my own failures, I really think that the very beginning of my career was a great example of this. Like I mentioned, when I graduated, America was in the height of a really terrible recession. And I actually had a lot of friends who had graduated quarters before me, so less than a year, maybe up to a year, who immediately got a job out of school. And then when I was graduating, they were all at my graduation because their studios closed overnight and they had nowhere else to go. So that's the level of instability that there was going on at the time. And so I struggled really significantly to break into the game industry for a lot of reasons, but the recession being one of them. And I found myself at the beginning really starting to fall into the thought process of, I'm not getting work because I'm not good enough. But looking back, my goodness, that is a silly thought process when you're going through a major recession and jobs are disappearing overnight. But I didn't see that at the time. And when I was looking for jobs and I started seeing these teaching opportunities show up, part of me thought, should I do this? Because that's not what I want to do. I want to be a game developer. I want to be in the game industry. But by embracing an alternative way to get to where I wanted to be, I still got into games by teaching, and I actually never stepped away from games at all. I was teaching games. And so by stepping away from, I'm not good enough, or I don't want to do this because it's not where I want to go, and just looking for opportunities, I was able to get exactly where I wanted to be, with probably more valuable experience than I would have had otherwise if I just sat there and did nothing, honestly, and I wouldn't have experience at all. So it was all about that mind shift, 100%.
Thank you so much for sharing. Farhan, anything you want to build on there from your own personal experience or how you frame failure at XR Bootcamp?
Yeah, I there's actually probably as well. There's a saying called founders make mistakes, the best ones are the ones that learn from them, right? So I think I'm also a founder, so I definitely make mistakes many times. For example, a couple of years ago we were trying to jump into one to another and then trying to build as much as we can just because of the passion we had, but then we realized that our impact is way higher when you focus on two three major programs and then build everything around this, and the opportunities come to that. I think that was my definitely like lessons learned. And as a founder, you need to know how to learn your lessons looking back. You need to look back to understand so that you can predict the future. That's very important. And the same thing applies to hackers, developers as well. Like hackathon is totally a very maybe a chaotic way of failures happening every hour and how you manage them, right? So it actually teaches you how you manage a failure there. And our whole, as Joy mentioned, and we also talk a little bit on the book as well. Like I think it's all about like how instead of like um, worrying about will I fail on this, just do it and then decide afterwards is it good or not. Because for me, for my whole life, I see all these trials as an opportunity not to find okay what I should do now, but to find out what I should not do. I think I
Mm.
mean when I was at school, college, I did six internships, and it was not all of them like a few months or something. Some of them were quite short. But the thing is, I literally go to different kind of internships that an electronics engineer can do, and then try everything. And at the end of these six internships, I knew what I don't like, which is more than enough for me to basically pave my path around. On our hackathons and the programs as well, we are always saying like there's a saying, fail fast, upskill faster. So that's our mindset, right? So I believe true innovation comes from these small, rapid failures, like fail fast, right? And they aren't setbacks actually. Like they are just data points, as Joy mentioned, that guide you towards the truly engaging and intuitive experience, especially in a new tech like XR and AI. This is the only chance because most probably you are the first one doing that mistake in the whole industry. And the good thing is we really want to share these learnings, mistakes with the others so they will not do the same mistake and they can build on top of each other.
Thank you so much. I love that advice of getting 5 or 6 internships to decide what you don't want to do. And again, I hear you both bringing back this concept of law of little quests to actually bring to the surface some quick failures so you can learn and upskill even faster. Joy, a lot of what we've discussed in this book is the importance of community. It's really at the soul of the center of the core career game loop. Could you help us understand how to build community in the up leveling phase?
Yeah, absolutely. And, this is something that I think a lot of people tend to struggle with, especially if they're more introverted. The most important part is to remember that the community that you're trying to build is just a collection of people who are like you. So, you're not the only person who's feeling nervous about trying to build a community. You're not the only person who's unsure of how to make that first step. And again, setting your mind to that, I think, eases things a little bit. But as far as building community, I really think that if you start looking for people who share your interests, you will find a community immediately, and that community is generally really welcoming. An example of this that immediately comes to mind is hyper specific, but I think a really great thing to call out, and that is the YouTube comments on the Unity live streams. Hyper specific, specifically the community that joins our live streams on YouTube, because they're Unity developers, because they all have the same mindset. They all want to come watch the Unity live streams to learn what Unity has to say about a product or a project that they're working on. Just incredibly great, and really wholesome and very supportive of each other because they all have the same goal. And it just naturally allows you to meet with people when you are looking for communities that share that same level of interest. So, I just gave a games example, but say if it's like a programming role that you're looking for, try and really start thinking about the specificity of what you want to be. What job are you trying to get into? What area? Is it XR? Is it learning and training? Look for those specific communities and also be really open. Also just saying, hey, you're just getting started, or hey, I'm, transferring from this other thing. And 99% of the time, you're going to find people embracing you with open arms. It's just about being genuine and finding the people who share your interests. And it's so important to have that network because the problems that you're facing, the questions that you have, the answers are there. Somebody has that answer, and you just need to find the place where they are so they can answer it for you.
Thanks so much, Joy. Farhan, this will be our last question. So, the book is really about the gaming mindset and how we apply it to our careers. Could you help us understand in your work and with your learners around the world how they are walking in with this gaming mindset and you're seeing it come to life?
Definitely. I think, as we mentioned in the book, especially I can talk about XR and AI. It's again a rapidly evolving tech landscape. So simply just learning an SDK, a new SDK, a new tech stack, software development kit will not be just enough, because unfortunately it will probably be outdated in a few months, right? So you need to find another mindset, as Joy mentioned, which is basically learning on how to learn new tools efficiently, right? Like how you can actually pick up a new mechanic and then adapt to these new rules of this mechanic and then master on complex systems, right? And since now AI is coming, probably the stuff that we need to memorize, we need to like learn code by code, it will not work because AI will already help us. We don't need to memorize or do these kind of things. But breaking down these into templates would be great. As I mentioned, reverse engineering mindset is always a savior for software engineering mindset people as well. They just have the sample code and or capstone project, and then they are basically breaking it down. I'm sure Joy is saying we are really pushing for that, but you should also create your own gamified learning journeys for you, right? So if you can do that, I think whenever you finish, you will not only have fun, but also you will learn something which is also fulfilling.
Joy, anything to conclude or build on with this question of how are we applying the gaming mindset?
So I think there are two principles that are the most important for, if you're feeling stuck or even if you're just starting and thinking about like how should I approach this. First and foremost is, as I mentioned before, to separate yourself from the process. Failures are not yours, mistakes are things that you could learn from. Nothing about, getting into a career or achieving a goal makes you a bad person. So I think that protecting your heart is really important, especially if your process from starting your career search to getting there is prolonged. You really need to protect yourself. Second is cultivating a curiosity mindset. If you're continually curious, you're going to naturally want to think about things in different ways or try different things or embrace failure because that's going to give you more data. So be curious and protect your heart.
Thank you so much, Joy. Thank you, Farhan. It's been such a pleasure here today. I've really taken away, take that big daunting problem, break it up into small pieces. When you start those small pieces, embrace the failure because it's really just data and insights that are going to help you learn faster and upskill faster. And most of all, have your community and building your community and your support system at the heart of the level up stage. Well, join us for our next conversation. We're going to be meeting Sam and really diving into the third step in the career game loop around the job hunt. He's going to teach us how to hack the grind around getting that next job and really negotiating our way into the next opportunity. We'll see you next time. Thanks, everybody.